After he was again stationed on his chariot, clad in armor and ready for battle, Yudhisthira called out to the Kauravas, "If any among you wishes to choose us, we will consider you our ally. Come then to our side." But there was silence and no one moved. Then, from out of the Kaurava ranks emerged Yuyutsu's chariot. "I will fight for you, O sinless one. Will you accept me?" "Yes, come, fight with us against your foolish brothers. O Yuyutsu, we accept you into our ranks. It seems the thread of Dhritarashtra's line, as well as their last funeral offerings, will rest upon you. O Prince, accept us who accept you. The wrathful and foolish Duryodhana will not survive." As drums and cymbals were sounded, Yuyutsu went over to the Pandava's side. Duryodhana glared in silent fury at his half-brother. Yuyutsu had never shared his feelings toward the Pandavas before, but it had been obvious enough from their frequent disagreements. But how dare he abandon his family in their hour of need? Yes, Yuyutsu would regret this foolish decision. Seeing that the moment of battle had arrived, the warriors on both sides began shouting in exultation. Now they would die and be elevated to the heavenly realm, or they would emerge victorious. To the sounds of thousands of conch shells, trumpets, and drums, the warriors rushed at each other with uplifted weapons. The earth shook, and clouds of dust rose into the air as they advanced. They sounded and appeared like two great oceans coming together. Bhimasena's cries rose above the tumult as he raced ahead of the Pandava forces, roaring like a bull. Hearing his shouts, which drowned out all other sounds, the Kaurava soldiers became afraid. Horses and elephants passed urine and excrement, faltering as they ran. Dhritarashtra's sons were struck with terror as Bhima came towards them, his mace whirling above his head. Bhima laughed at his frightened foes. At last, the moment had arrived. Now he could finally release the full fury of his anger. Taking heart, the Kauravas shouted out their own battle cries, waving their bows in the air. They surrounded Bhima and began firing snake-like arrows at him. Laughing as the arrows glanced off his armor, Bhima struck other shafts down with his mace. Bhima shook off their attack. He replied with thousands of his own arrows, dispersing the Kaurava princes in all directions. Abhimanyu and Draupadi's sons, along with Nakula, Sahadeva, and Drishtadyumna, advanced in a body and tore into the Kaurava forces, scattering arrows everywhere. And as they hurled their weapons at one another, neither side flinched nor turned back from the violence. The twang of bowstrings and the slapping of strings hitting leather arm protectors and gloves could be heard everywhere. The air was full of swift-flying arrows. Spears, darts, and iron balls fell upon both armies in the thousands. The blare of conch shells, the lion-like roar of the warriors, the heavy tread of the infantry, the neighing of the horses, the clashing of the weapons, the clatter of the chariot wheels, the jingle of the bells around the elephants' necks, the elephants trumpeting, and the beating of drums, all mingled to produce a hair-raising uproar. Recklessly, the warriors rushed forward. Immediately, Arjuna engaged with Bhishma. With lightness of hand, Arjuna fired countless arrows at Bhishma, but Bhishma countered them all. He returned numerous shafts at Arjuna. Even though Bhishma's arrows pierced him, still Arjuna did not waver. But nor could Arjuna shake Bhishma as he sent at him his own deadly shafts. The two heroes exchanged arrows while the fight raged all around them. As the battle got underway, the sky began to flash red and blue, while black clouds showered flesh and blood onto the battlefield. A terrible wind blew, carrying innumerable stones, afflicting all the troops. The loud rumble of thunder resounded, and bolts of lightning struck the earth. Powerful chariot warriors engaged with other chariot fighters, while infantry battled infantry and horsemen engaged with other mounted troops. The warriors sought out their marked enemies. Bhimasena assailed Duryodhana, Sahadev with Shakuni, and Drishtadyumna with Drona Acharya. As other kings and Kshatriyas came to their aid, the battle swelled, and weapons flew in all 10 directions. On both sides of the armies, divisions of Rakshasas marched. Gatotkacha led a division of Rakshasas on behalf of the Pandavas, and the powerful Alambusha led the Rakshasas for the Kauravas. These awful beings created a huge carnage among the soldiers as they wielded their axes and bludgeons. The warriors fought as if possessed by demons, and no quarter was spared. Amid the terrible confusion, fathers could not recognize their own sons, neither could brothers recognize their brothers, nor friends their friends. Uncles slew their nephews, and cousins killed cousins. Men hacked and struck at one another with swords, spiked maces, and heavy clubs. Streams of blood flowed freely across the battlefield, carrying mutilated and severed limbs. Chariots smashed against chariots, breaking them to pieces, while elephants tore into other elephants, gouging them with their steel-tipped tusks. The battlefield thus assumed the appearance of Yamaloka, the abode of death. Men screamed in pain, sounding like souls condemned to hell. The bodies of the slain warriors and animals lay everywhere in heaps. Axes and swords, dripping with blood, whizzed through the air. There was a continuous loud thudding sound as heavy maces and swift arrows struck the bodies of the soldiers. Bhishmadev fought with fury. His tall flag standard, bearing a palm tree with 5 stars, glided through the Pandava army, leaving a trail of bodies and shattered chariots in its wake. With his straight arrows, Bhishma severed the heads and limbs of anyone who came before him. The old Kuru hero seemed to dance in his chariot as he whirled about, wielding his bow. His deadly shafts were fired with such power that they could pierce even great elephants to their vitals, sending them tumbling to the earth. Seeing the destruction Bhishma was causing, Abhimanyu rushed towards him, shouting out a challenge. Bhishma was protected by 5 Maha-Bharata heroes, but Abhimanyu attacked them all. Firing arrows that flew with blinding speed, Abhimanyu held off Bhishma's protectors while simultaneously attacking Bhishma. With one well-aimed arrow, Abhimanyu cut Bhishma's bow into 2 pieces, and with another 3 arrows, Abhimanyu cut down Bhishma's flag standard, which fluttered to the floor of his chariot. Witnessing Abhimanyu's lightness of hand, even the Celestials were pleased. The warriors who saw Abhimanyu considered that he was in no way inferior to his father. His bow, which sounded just like the Gandiva of his father, seemed like a circle of fire as Abhimanyu continuously released arrows. As that godlike prince spun in his chariot, his shafts appeared to be leaving his bow in all 10 directions at once. Now under attack, Bhishma gathered himself and fought back. He wounded Arjuna's son with 9 arrows, then cut down his flag standard with 3 more. Kritavarma, Shalya, and Kripa, who were among Bhishma's protectors, all of them assailed Abhimanyu, but they could not make him waver. He repelled their attack while maintaining his assault on Bhishmadev. The warriors witnessing the fight all praised Abhimanyu's prowess, calling out, "Bravo! Well done!" Bhishmadev covered Arjuna's son Abhimanyu with thousands of arrows. As Bhishma increased the ferocity of his attack, a number of other Pandava heroes, headed by Bhimasena, came to Abhimanyu's aid. All of them aimed their weapons at Bhishma. Not the least perturbed, Bhishma sent his long golden shafts at all of them. Bhumani Jai, the prince of Virat, also came to support Abhimanyu. Shalya attacked him, and a fierce battle ensued between the 2 fighters. Bhumani Jai was mounted on a huge elephant, and he rushed towards Shalya, wielding a lance. The elephant placed its foot onto the yoke of Shalya's chariot, crushing and killing the 4 horses. Remaining on his chariot, Shalya took out a large iron dart and hurled it at Bhumani Jai with all of his strength. That dart pierced Bhumani Jai's armor and went into his chest. The prince fell lifeless from his elephant, his hook and lance falling from his hands. Shalya then jumped down from his chariot. Raising his sword, he brought it down and severed the elephant's trunk. As the great beast fell dead, Shalya quickly climbed onto Kritavarma's chariot, being praised for his heroism by all the fighters present. Bhumani Jai's brother, Sweta, saw Shalya kill his brother. Blazing with anger, he rushed at the king of Madra like an infuriated elephant. 7 Kaurava warriors came forward to check him, showering him with arrows. Sweta countered the shafts and with 7 broad-headed arrows of his own, cut all of his assailants' bows into 2. The Kaurava fighters angrily hurled darts at Sweta, which flew towards him like fiery meteors. But with his own razor-headed shafts, Prince Shweta cut down the missiles before they could even reach him. And with still more arrows, Shweta wounded his attackers and sent them reeling in all directions, their flag standards cut and their bodies mutilated. Shweta continued towards Shalya, and it appeared as if death personified had come for the Madras king. Seeing him advance, Bhishma quickly placed himself between Shweta and Shalya. Thousands of horsemen and charioteers came to Shweta's aid, and Bhishma began to pick them off with his unerring shafts. As he fired his uncountable golden arrows, the son of Ganga seemed like the blazing sun with its rays in the summer. And just as the sun dispels darkness, Bhishma dispelled the foes who surrounded him. Soon, many chariots which he had deprived of their warriors were flying aimlessly about the battlefield. Impetuous horses carried youthful riders who had been killed and were hanging from their saddles. Hundreds of slain warriors lay on the ground, their armor shattered and their heads and arms cut off. As Bhishma slew the Pandava troops, Shweta killed large numbers of Kauravas. In his fury, no one could stand before him. After some time, it was only he and Bhishma remaining to face one another. They attacked each other like two enraged lions. Showers of arrows sped through the sky like golden-winged birds. Each fighter wounded the other. Shweta, with blood flowing from his wounds, fired 25 arrows into the body of Bhishma Dev. He then cut Bhishma's bow with another 10 arrows, and with still more arrows, Shweta killed Bhishma's horses and charioteer. Without hesitating, Bhishma took up another bow and jumped down from his chariot. He continued fighting the prince on foot. Shweta then took out a golden dart and called out, "Wait, wait just a moment, O Bhishma! I will slay you at once." Shweta then hurled the dart, which fell towards Bhishma like a comet. The many warriors watching the fight then cried out, "Alas! Bhishma is slain!" However, Bhishma was not slain. He sent 8 arrows at the dart, cutting it into fragments. Bhishma fought on with Shweta, who became senseless with fury as he saw his dart checked. Shweta then took up a huge spiked mace and rushed towards Bhishma. Ganga's son mounted a fresh chariot brought by his aides, for he considered the attack unstoppable. He leaped clear of his chariot just as Shweta brought the mace down upon it. The force of the blow smashed the chariot, the flag standard, horses, and charioteer. Bhishma then got up on another chariot and resumed his attack on Shweta. The prince had now mounted his own chariot, and Bhishma Dev advanced towards him. And as the two warriors closed in on one another, continuously releasing weapons, Bhishma heard a voice from the sky. "O mighty armed hero, the time fixed for Shweta's destruction has now arrived. So fight on with all of your power and gain victory, O great Bhishma Dev." Bhishma Dev now looked directly at Shweta. He was flanked by numerous Pandava warriors, among them Bhimasena, Abhimanyu, and Satyaki. However, encouraged by the divine voice, Bhishma attacked Shweta alone while parrying the other attacks. Now, closing in on the Virata prince, Bhishma took up an arrow which resembled the very rod of death itself. He placed the golden shaft, decked with gems, onto his bow and drew back the string to his ear. Imbuing the arrow with the force of the Brahma weapon, Bhishma released it to kill Shweta. With the flash like a thunderbolt, the arrow struck the prince on his chest, and it passed clean through his body. It entered the earth like a snake going into its hole, carrying along with it the hero's life. Shweta fell from his chariot like a peak loosened from the summit of a mountain. The Pandavas sent up cries of lamentation, while the Kauravas shouted joyously. Duryodhan and Dushashan danced with delight. They repeatedly praised Bhishma as the loud music of trumpets and drums sounded.